The alarms echoed through the colony halls, red lights flashing against metal walls. People rushed toward the square where the guards had dragged in a massive cage. Inside, a huge alien beast growled, its yellow eyes glowing through the bars. The creature's scales shimmered faintly in the light, scarred from battles no one dared imagine. It slammed against the bars once, making the ground shake. Fear spread quickly, whispers rising as the crowd gathered. Mothers pulled their children close. Engineers muttered about safety, and soldiers tightened their grips on weapons. Everyone knew what was coming. The governor raised his voice above the noise. This beast is dangerous. It cannot be controlled. It must be sacrificed for the safety of the colony. His words carried the weight of authority, and the crowd nodded, though uneasily. Most had never seen such a creature before, but stories of its attacks had spread fast. The people believed it was a monster, a predator that would tear apart anyone foolish enough to approach. To them, killing it was the only choice. But near the back of the crowd stood a human unlike the others. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier, not a leader, just a worker who repaired machines and carried supplies. Yet as he watched the creature thrash in fear, he felt something different from the others. Where they saw only danger, he saw desperation. The beast's heavy breaths were not just rage, they were exhaustion. Its claws shook not only from strength but also from hunger. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest, a quiet voice telling him that this creature was not meant to die here. The guards prepared their weapons. A shimmering spear of plasma was set to pierce the cage. The governor raised his hand to give the final order. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the strike that would end the beast's life. But at that exact moment, the creature let out a sound no one expected. It was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a low, pained whimper. For a second, the crowd froze. Even the guards hesitated. Daniel stepped forward. His heart pounded, his hands shook, but his feet carried him closer to the cage. "Wait," he said, his voice breaking through the silence. All eyes turned to him. "Please, wait," the governor frowned. "Worker, step back. This is not your place," but Daniel didn't stop. He moved past the line of guards, ignoring their warning. Every step felt like a fight against his own fear. The beast's eyes locked onto him, sharp and glowing, yet beneath the fire he saw something else. Something almost human. The crowd gasped as Daniel knelt near the cage, slowly reaching into his pouch. He pulled out a small piece of food he had carried for his shift, a dry bread ration. His fingers trembled as he pushed it through the bars. The beast sniffed, its nostrils flaring. A growl rumbled in its throat, but its eyes stayed fixed on the food. Slowly, carefully, it stretched its neck and snapped the bread into its jaws. The crunch of teeth echoed, and then silence. The alien lowered its head. For the first time, it did not slam against the bars. It did not roar. It simply chewed, staring at Daniel as if trying to understand him. The crowd murmured louder now, confusion mixing with disbelief. "Impossible," one whispered. "It's supposed to kill anything that moves," another said. The guards raised their weapons again, unsure of what to do. But Daniel did not move away. He gently placed his hand against the bars, his palm open, showing he carried no threat. The beast sniffed again. Its hot breath brushed against his skin. Daniel closed his eyes, expecting claws or teeth. But instead, the alien leaned closer, pressing its scaled head softly against the bars where his hand rested. A shocked cry spread through the people. The monster was not attacking, it was trusting, Daniel whispered, barely loud enough to hear. "You're not a monster, are you? You're just alone." His words trembled, but the creature tilted its head as if it understood. The governor's face twisted in disbelief. His authority wavered as people questioned what they had just seen. If the beast could be calmed, if it could be touched, then perhaps it was not the threat they feared. But doubt turned quickly to anger. "This is dangerous," the governor barked. "It is a trick. The beast cannot be trusted. End this now." Guards raised their weapons again, the glow of plasma lighting the air. Daniel stood in front of the cage, blocking their aim. His voice rose, steady now. "No, killing it is wrong. Look at it, it's not our enemy. It just needs kindness." The square filled with tension, silence broken only by the beast's slow breaths. The crowd didn't know who to believe, the leader who promised safety or the human who risked his life for a creature they had feared. One wrong move and plasma fire would end not just the beast, but Daniel as well. And yet, in that fragile moment, the human hand on alien scales was more powerful than all the weapons in the square. The air in the square was heavy, thick with tension. No one moved, no one breathed too loudly. All eyes stayed fixed on the man and the beast. Daniel's hand rested against the bars while the alien pressed its head close, a picture so strange and fragile that the people could hardly believe it was real. The governor's command to fire still hung in the air, but the guards hesitated, uncertain. "Stand aside, worker," the governor shouted again, anger sharpening his voice. His authority was slipping, and he could feel it. But Daniel stood firm, shaking but unyielding. "If you fire, you'll kill me too," he said, his voice low but steady. The crowd murmured louder now. Some looked afraid. Some looked amazed. A few even began to question whether the governor's judgment had been wrong all along. The beast shifted, letting out a low rumble. This time it was not the roar of anger, but something softer, almost like a sigh. Its great yellow eyes blinked slowly as it sniffed the man's arm. The guards tensed again, ready to strike, but the creature did nothing violent. It only leaned closer, nudging the bars with its snout. Daniel reached back into his pouch. He had only a small supply of food left, just enough for himself after his work shift. But he pulled out another piece and pushed it through. Again, the alien accepted it, chewing slowly, never breaking its gaze from him. To Daniel, it was clear. The creature was hungry, not evil. Its fury had been fear. A little boy in the crowd whispered loudly to his mother, "Mama, it looks like it likes him." His words spread like sparks through dry grass. People began to see differently, whispering to each other. "It didn't attack him. Maybe it doesn't want to fight," one said. "What if we've been wrong?" Another muttered. Doubt filled the square, and the governor's authority cracked further. But the governor was not ready to lose control. His face darkened, and he raised his hand again. "Enough, this colony cannot risk trusting a monster. Guard, prepare the spear." The plasma spear hummed, glowing with lethal energy. Daniel's stomach twisted, but he stepped forward, pressing both hands firmly against the cage bars now, as if shielding the beast. "Stop," he shouted, louder this time. His voice carried across the square. "Killing it won't make us safer. It will only make us crueler." The crowd quieted, listening. Daniel's words touched something deep inside them. They had come expecting death, expecting another story of survival bought with violence. But now they were witnessing something different, something almost miraculous. The alien beast, once a symbol of terror, lowered itself inside the cage, folding its limbs and settling onto the ground. Its breathing slowed, its tail curled close to its body. It looked less like a monster and more like a weary, wounded animal. The shift was undeniable. People gasped, their fear mixing with awe. Daniel slowly slid his hand between the bars, heart pounding. The crowd braced, expecting claws to strike, but instead the alien leaned forward, brushing its rough-scaled skin against his fingers. Gasps rose again, followed by silence so deep the hum of the plasma weapon seemed deafening. In that silence, Daniel spoke softly, his voice carrying like a whisper across stone. "This creature doesn't need sacrifice. It needs care. It needs someone to see it for what it is, not what we fear it to be." A guard lowered his weapon. Then another. The governor barked, "Hold your positions!" But doubt was spreading faster than his orders. Ordinary colonists were nodding, murmuring to each other. For the first time, the beast no longer looked like a threat. They saw it through Daniel's eyes. Then something unexpected happened. A woman in the front of the crowd, a farmer, stepped forward with a basket of dried roots. She hesitated, then crouched near the cage and placed one near the bars. The alien sniffed, stretched, and gently picked it up. The crowd gasped again, but this time the sound was mixed with wonder. The beast ate slowly, peacefully. Now the murmurs grew into words. "It can be tamed," someone said. "Maybe it's not a monster after all." The governor's face burned red with frustration. His control was slipping through his fingers like sand. Daniel turned, facing the people. "We are colonists, not conquerors. If we kill everything we fear, what does that make us? This creature could be a friend, an ally, even a guardian. We need to try. And an ally, even a guardian. We need to try." The beast gave a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr, as if agreeing. The crowd was no longer certain of the governor's command. For the first time, they looked at Daniel, not him, for guidance. The governor clenched his fists. His rule was built on fear, and now one simple act of kindness was tearing it apart. He hissed through his teeth, "You'll regret this, worker. You've endangered us all." But Daniel only looked back at the beast, stroking its scaled snout gently through the bars. He whispered to himself, too quietly for most to hear, "No, this is the beginning of something greater. And in that moment, with the crowd swayed, the guards uncertain, and the beast calm for the first time, the human had planted a seed of change that would grow far beyond this night. The square was quiet long after the crowd had dispersed. People left in small groups, whispering about what they had seen. Some were amazed, others confused, but all of them carried the image of Daniel and the beast burned into their minds. For years, the colony had lived in fear of the alien creatures that roamed the wild lands beyond their walls. To them, fear meant survival. But now, fear had been challenged by a single act of kindness. The governor remained behind, staring at the cage. His jaw tightened as he replayed the scene in his mind. The alien had lowered itself, had taken food, had shown something resembling trust. But to him, this was not a miracle. It was a threat to his power. If the colony began to believe that kindness could replace control, then his authority would crumble. He clenched his fists in the shadows, muttering, "That worker will ruin everything." Daniel, unaware of the governor's anger, walked slowly back to his small quarters on the edge of the colony. His heart was still pounding from what he had done. He could hardly believe he had stood up to the governor, or that the beast had accepted his touch. He replayed the moment over and over, each time feeling the same strange mix of fear and wonder. A part of him wanted to stay away, to leave the creature behind and return to his quiet life. But another part of him, stronger now, told him he could not. Something had connected them, something deeper than fear. The next morning, Daniel returned to the square. The guards still stood watch, weapons ready, but their eyes no longer burned with certainty. Some even nodded at him as he approached. The beast lay inside the cage, its body curled, its breathing heavy. When Daniel came closer, the alien lifted its head and gave a low sound like a greeting. The guards shifted uncomfortably, but Daniel smiled softly. He knelt near the bars and placed a piece of fruit he had saved from breakfast. Slowly, the alien stretched its neck forward and took it. Again, there was no violence, no rage, only calm hunger. Daniel reached out his hand and the beast pressed against it. The connection was stronger this time, less uncertain. The bond was growing. By noon, word had spread that the worker had fed the beast again. A crowd gathered once more, smaller than before, but more curious. People brought scraps of food, roots, dried fish, even water. At first, they only placed them near the bars, but as the creature accepted each gift, courage grew. One by one, they moved closer. A child, trembling with both fear and excitement, reached out and touched the beast's scales before hiding behind his mother. Laughter broke through the tension, the sound of joy in a place once ruled by fear. But not everyone was smiling. From the governor's chamber, high above the square, cold eyes watched. His advisor spoke nervously. "Governor, the people are starting to believe the beast can be tamed. They listen to the worker now." The governor's lips curled into a sneer. "Then we remind them who truly protects this colony. If fear fades, we give them a reason to fear again." That night, while the colony slept, a group of armed men slipped into the square. They were not ordinary guards, but the governor's loyal enforcers. Their orders were clear. Weaken the beast, make it lash out, prove to everyone that Daniel was wrong. They jabbed at the cage with electrified rods, sending sparks across the bars. The alien roared, thrashing violently as pain shot through its body. Its tail slammed the ground, shaking the stone beneath. From the shadows, the governor watched with grim satisfaction. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "the people will see the truth." But what the governor didn't know was that Daniel was awake. He had been unable to sleep, his thoughts tied to the creature. When he heard the distant roar, his heart froze. Without hesitation, he rushed to the square. The sight before him filled him with fury. The beast was thrashing in agony, its eyes wild with fear and pain. Sparks lit the night as the enforcers struck again. "Stop!" Daniel shouted, his voice raw. The men turned, startled. "By order of the governor," one began, but Daniel didn't let him finish. He charged forward, grabbing a rod and yanking it from the man's hand. The weapon cracked against the ground as he stood between the attackers and the cage. "You'll kill it!" he cried. The beast stilled, panting heavily, its glowing eyes locked on Daniel. Even through the pain, recognition flickered there. It saw who had come to defend it. Daniel turned to the men, his voice shaking with both anger and fear. "This isn't protection. This is cruelty. If you kill it, you'll prove nothing but your own weakness." The enforcers hesitated. They were loyal to the governor, but even they could not ignore the way the creature's rage softened when Daniel stood near. For a moment, no one moved. Then the governor stepped out of the shadows, his voice booming. "Enough. This is exactly what I warned you all about. This beast cannot be trusted, it is dangerous. But the people awakened by the noise had begun gathering again. They saw Daniel standing firm, the beast calm behind him, and the governor with his cruel men holding weapons. Whispers spread quickly. Why attack it in the night? Why torture it if it was calm before? The governor's plan was unraveling. His attempt to prove the beast dangerous had instead exposed his own fear of losing control. And in that moment, Daniel knew the battle ahead was no longer just about saving the beast. It was about saving the very soul of the colony. The colony was restless the next day. Rumors spread like fire in dry grass. Some whispered about Daniel's bravery, about how he had stood against the governor's men in the middle of the night. Others whispered that the governor had ordered the attack, though none dared say it too loudly. The truth was plain to anyone who had seen it. The beast had been calm until the men struck it. Daniel returned to the square early in the morning. His eyes were heavy from lack of sleep, but his resolve was stronger than ever. The beast sat quietly inside the cage, its yellow eyes following him as he approached. There were marks burned into its scales where the rods had struck, the wounds raw and painful to look at. Daniel knelt down, placing his hand gently against the bars. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The alien lowered its head, pressing against his palm as if to say it understood. Soon people began to gather again. Some brought water, others bits of food. One woman brought herbs, crushed them into a paste, and pressed them into Daniel's hands. "For the wounds," she said softly. Daniel hesitated, unsure if the creature would allow it, but he tried. He pushed his hand carefully through the bars and touched the burned skin. The beast tensed, growling low, but Daniel kept his voice calm. "It's all right. I'm helping." Slowly, the alien relaxed, allowing him to rub the herbs over the injuries. Gas rose from the crowd. It was not attacking him, it was letting him heal it. By midday, the square was full again. Children laughed nervously as the beast accepted food from their hands. Men and women, once terrified, now leaned closer to watch. The fear that had ruled the colony for so long was beginning to fade, replaced by something new: curiosity, even hope. But in the governor's chamber, fury boiled. His advisors warned him that the people's trust was shifting. "They look to the worker now," one said. "They see the beast as proof that kindness works." The governor slammed his fist onto the table. "Kindness does not build walls. Kindness does not keep raiders away. Fear does, strength does. If they forget that, we are finished." He paced the room, thinking. Then his eyes hardened. If the beast makes them forget fear, then the beast must be removed. Quietly, before it's too late. That night the governor summoned his enforcers again. "Tomorrow," he said, "we take it into the wilds. We claim it escaped. No one will know the truth." The men nodded reluctantly, but one of them shifted uneasily. "Governor, the people are watching too closely. If it vanishes, they'll suspect us." The governor's glare silenced him. "Then we will make sure the blame falls on the worker." Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. His mind was full of images. The beast pressing its head against his hand, the crowd smiling instead of trembling, the governor's rage. He knew he had crossed a line. He was no longer just a worker. He had become a voice the people listened to. But that also meant he was now a target. In the darkness, a knock came at his door. Daniel opened it to find a young guard standing there, looking nervous. "They're planning something," the guard whispered. "The governor won't let this continue. He wants the beast gone, and he wants you blamed. It's the beast gone, and he wants you blamed." Daniel's stomach tightened. He closed his eyes, knowing the guard spoke the truth. The governor would never accept being replaced by hope. He would fight to keep fear alive. Daniel placed a hand on the guard's shoulder. "Thank you. Go back before they notice." The next morning, Daniel rushed to the square earlier than usual. He found the enforcers already there, preparing chains and tranquilizers. "What are you doing?" he demanded. One of them sneered. "Orders. The beast is being moved." The crowd began to gather again, sensing something was wrong. Mothers pulled their children close. Men frowned, whispering angrily. "Why move it?" someone shouted. It was peaceful. Daniel stepped in front of the enforcers, spreading his arms wide. "No, you won't take it. This beast has shown us more than fear. It's shown us trust. If you take it now, you're not protecting the colony. You're stealing hope from it." The enforcers raised their weapons, tension crackling in the air. But then a voice rose from the crowd. "He's right," another shouted. We saw it ourselves. More voices joined in, louder and louder, until the square was filled with shouts. The people no longer stood in silence, they stood with Daniel. The governor arrived, his face like stone. He raised his hands for silence, but the crowd did not quiet. His commands, once obeyed without question, now sounded hollow. Daniel turned to the people, his voice strong. You have seen the truth. This creature is not our enemy. It can be our ally, but only if we protect it from fear, our fear and his. He pointed at the governor. Murmurs surged through the crowd, anger building. The people began to see not the beast as the danger, but the man who wanted to destroy it. The alien beast, as if sensing the shift, pressed close to the bars, giving a deep rumble. Not a roar, not a cry of pain, something that sounded almost like a vow. The people fell quiet, staring in awe. In that moment, the colony was no longer united by fear of the beast. It was united by the possibility of change. The tension in the colony had reached a breaking point. For the first time in years, the governor's voice no longer held the same power. When he ordered the beast to be taken away, the people resisted. When he tried to call for silence, their shouts drowned him out. That night, he locked himself in his chamber, furious and plotting. To him, Daniel had become more dangerous than the beast. Daniel, on the other hand, could barely rest. He knew the governor would not stop. The man had built his rule on fear, and Daniel had torn a hole in that foundation. The only way forward was to make the colony believe fully in the beast's innocence before the governor destroyed everything. At dawn, Daniel returned to the square again. The beast lifted its head at the sight of him, its eyes softer now, its body calmer. The burns from the night attack were healing thanks to the herbs the villagers had brought. Daniel spoke to it quietly. We're not safe yet, but they're starting to believe in you. We have to show them more. More people arrived carrying food and water, but this time something was different. They didn't just bring scraps. They brought offerings. A blanket stitched from cloth, a carved wooden bowl filled with fruit, even toys from children who wanted to see if the creature would play. The beast sniffed at the blanket before curling against it, making the children giggle. Slowly, laughter replaced the silence that once filled the square, but the governor was already moving in secret. In the dark of night, he had sent word beyond the colony walls to the raiders who haunted the wild lands. He promised them weapons and supplies if they created a diversion. His plan was simple: unleash chaos, and when fear returned, he would rise as the only one who could control it. That evening, the attack came. Sirens wailed as fire lit up the horizon. Raiders stormed the gates, shouting and firing crude energy rifles. The colony panicked. Families ran for cover. Guards scrambled to defend the walls, and the square emptied in chaos. Daniel was caught in the middle of it. He saw the raiders breaking through, saw fire spreading across the fields. He turned back to the cage where the beast still sat, growling as the chaos reached its ears. The guards who had been stationed nearby fled to the gates, leaving the cage unguarded. Daniel knew what the governor wanted. The raiders would terrify the people again, and when fear ruled, they would look back to the governor for safety. But something in Daniel's heart refused to let that happen. He ran to the cage, fumbling with the heavy lock. His hands shook as plasma fire flashed in the distance. I need you, he whispered. They need you. Please trust me. The beast pressed against the bars, snarling at the noise of battle. But when Daniel met its eyes, he saw recognition. The connection was there, strong as ever. He pulled hard on the latch until it snapped open. The gate creaked as it swung wide. For a moment, the creature hesitated. Freedom was in front of it, but so was Daniel. Would it flee into the night or stand with him? Then with a deep rumble, the beast stepped out. Its towering body rose above him, its scales catching the firelight. The crowd that had not yet escaped screamed when they saw it free. But Daniel raised his arms and shouted, "It's with us. Trust it." The beast turned toward the raiders who had begun pouring into the outer streets. It roared, a sound so loud the walls themselves seemed to shake. The raiders froze. They had heard stories of this monster, stories of claws and death. Now it stood before them, massive and alive, its teeth bared. Panic spread through their ranks. Daniel ran alongside it, shouting to the colonists, "Look! It fights for us, not against us." The beast lunged forward, swiping a raider aside with one massive claw. Another tried to fire, but the creature crushed his weapon underfoot. The colonists who had once feared it now watched as it defended them, scattering their enemies. Within minutes, the raiders began retreating, their courage broken. They fled back into the wilds, leaving weapons and supplies behind. The colonists erupted into cheers, though mixed with disbelief. The very creature they had been told to fear had saved them. But not everyone was cheering. From the balcony of his chamber, the governor stared in horror. His plan had backfired. Instead of proving the beast was dangerous, it had become the colony's protector. Worse, it was Daniel who had unleashed it. Daniel who now stood as the hero in the people's eyes. The governor's advisors whispered nervously. "They'll follow him now. The people will listen to him, not you." Rage twisted the governor's face. "Then we crush him before he takes everything." In the square below, Daniel stood beside the beast, his hand resting on its shoulder. The people gathered, cheering, crying, bowing in gratitude. Daniel looked at them all, his voice steady. "This is no monster. This is our ally. Together we are stronger." And as the beast lowered its head beside him, the colony began to believe. The colony was buzzing with life the morning after the attack. People spoke of nothing else but the way the beast had fought beside them. Children reenacted the scene, pretending to be the creature roaring at the raiders. Farmers told stories about how the raiders ran in fear the moment it appeared. For the first time in years, the colony was filled not with whispers of danger, but with laughter and pride. Daniel walked through the streets, and everywhere he went, people stopped to thank him. "You saved us. You gave us hope. That beast is no enemy, it's a guardian." The words filled him with warmth but also unease. He never wanted to be a leader. He was just a worker who had chosen to trust where others had feared. But now the people were looking to him for guidance. At the edge of the square, the beast rested. It had curled up on the stone, its massive body rising and falling with steady breaths. Children crept close, tossing bits of food toward it. To everyone's amazement, the creature accepted their offerings gently, even letting a brave child touch its scales before rumbling softly like a cat's purr. The fear that had once ruled the colony was gone, replaced by wonder. But high above, in the governor's chamber, there was no joy. The governor paced furiously, his advisors silent around him. "Do you not see?" he hissed. "That worker has stolen their loyalty. They cheer for him, not for me. If this continues, I will have no power left." One advisor, braver than the others, spoke carefully. "Perhaps this is not all bad. The beast has proven useful. If you claim credit for its release..." The governor cut him off with a glare. "Credit? They already see Daniel as the savior. No, the beast must be destroyed and Daniel with it." That night, the governor gathered his enforcers in secret. He spread a map of the colony on the table. "Tomorrow we will stage another attack. Not raiders this time, our own men in disguise. When chaos breaks out, we kill the beast and claim it turned on us. And Daniel? He will die protecting it. The people will believe it betrayed them, and their trust will return to me." The enforcers nodded grimly, though some shifted uneasily. They had seen the beast's gentleness, but fear of the governor's wrath kept them silent. Fear of the governor's wrath kept them silent. The next day began quietly. Daniel woke with a strange heaviness in his chest, a sense that something was wrong. When he arrived at the square, the beast greeted him with a low rumble, pressing its head against his hand. He smiled faintly but could not shake the unease. The people gathered as usual, bringing food and speaking to him with admiration. But in the corners, shadows moved. Men the colony did. The fire spread quickly, orange flames licking up the side of the colony wall. Smoke filled the square, sending people into panic. Children cried, families rushed in all directions, and the peaceful morning turned into chaos. Daniel's heart raced. He knew at once this was no accident. The governor had made his move. The disguised men pulled weapons from beneath their cloaks. They shouted that the beast had broken free, blaming it for the fire. Some colonists gasped in fear, but many shook their heads. "That's not true!" "We saw who did it." Voices rose in confusion as the crowd split between terror and defiance. The beast roared, but not in anger. It was a cry of warning. It crouched protectively near the children still trapped in the square, shielding them with its huge body as flames spread closer. Daniel ran through the smoke, pulling 2 children into his arms and guiding others behind the creature's massive frame. "Stay close to it," he shouted. "It's protecting you." The governor's enforcers moved in. Plasma rifles lit up with blue light, aimed directly at the beast. "Now!" one shouted. But before they could fire, Daniel stepped in front of the weapons, his arms spread wide. His voice broke through the roar of the fire and the screams of the people. "Don't shoot! This is a lie! The beast is saving us, not attacking us. Some guards hesitated. They remembered the night of the raider attack, remembered how the creature had fought beside them. Their grips on their rifles loosened. But others, loyal only to the governor, kept their aim steady. The governor himself appeared on a raised platform, his face twisted with fury. "You fools!" he bellowed. "This beast will destroy us all. And that man, Daniel, is leading you to ruin. Fire now!" The order cut through the smoke like a blade. A shot rang out, searing past Daniel's shoulder and grazing the beast's flank. The creature roared in pain, thrashing for a moment. The crowd gasped in horror. The governor's men shouted, "See? It's violent!" But Daniel spun toward the people, his voice desperate. "Now you saw what happened." They struck first. "The governor wants you afraid. Don't believe his lies." The beast steadied itself, crouching low again to shield the colonists from both fire and bullets. Its yellow eyes glowed, but they held no hatred, only fierce determination. The children behind it clung to its scales, crying but unharmed. The crowd began to shout over the governor's words. "He's lying. The beast is protecting us. Daniel is right." The governor's face turned pale as he realized the tide was shifting against him. His plan was unraveling. Desperate, he raised his own weapon and aimed at Daniel. "Then I will end this myself." Everything slowed. Daniel saw the barrel glow with deadly light. He felt his legs lock, but before the shot could strike, the beast lunged. Its massive body moved like lightning, slamming itself between Daniel and the governor's blast. The shot tore into its side, sending a spray of glowing blood across the stone. The creature let out a deep, echoing roar, shaking the square. Daniel dropped to his knees beside it, pressing his hands against the wound. "No, stay with me. Please stay with me," he cried. The beast rumbled weakly, lowering its head close to his. The colonists erupted. They surged forward, shouting in rage at the governor. Guards loyal to him were shoved back as the crowd overpowered them. Stones and fists flew. "Traitor! Murderer!" Voices roared louder than the fire itself. For the first time, the people no longer feared their leader. They hated him. The governor tried to retreat, but his own men faltered under the weight of the uprising. The colonists pushed forward, surrounding the platform. The governor shouted desperately, but his words carried no power now. The people had seen too much. Daniel pressed harder on the beast's wound, his hands trembling. "You can't die, not now. You've shown them who you are." The beast's great eye blinked slowly, focusing on him. Then, with a final burst of strength, it lifted its head and gave a roar so powerful the fire seemed to bow to its voice. It was not a cry of pain, but a vow, a promise to stand with these people no matter the cost. The colonists roared back, their voices uniting. "Protect it. Protect Daniel. Protect our guardian." The sound rolled like thunder through the colony. The governor's soldiers dropped their weapons one by one, realizing the fight was lost. As the flames began to die and the smoke cleared, the balance of power shifted forever. The people no longer looked to the governor for protection. Their eyes turned to Daniel and to the wounded beast that had bled for them. And in that moment, the governor understood the truth he had fought so hard to deny. Fear no longer ruled this colony. Hope did, colony. Hope did.